Hi, I'm Nicola, and I work on the people team, and I am going to talk today about objectives and key results. So we're going to talk about a few different things. First, what's an OKR? It's a strange acronym. What do those letters mean? And then kind of how Fractured Atlas came upon deciding to use OKRs, what a general timeline looks like, and then how each individual can make a great OKR and what goes into that process. So first, what's an OKR? It stands for Objectives and Key Results. The O comes from objectives, KR comes from key results, and it's a way of identifying and aligning goals. So each OKR consists of one objective and then one to several key results. And objectives are kind of general goals to work towards. They're kind of like themes for your work, and they should be kind of aspirational and qualitative. And then key results are hard nosed and specific. They describe an outcome state that indicates progress towards the objective. And when possible, they should be connected to numbers to make them as objective as you can. And they, besides identifying and aligning goals, they also help track progress towards those goals. So here's just a really simple and kind of funny example, but I just wanted to show what one looks like. So the I will master the art of pizza making is an objective. It's something that's pretty aspirational. It's something that I want to have happen. And then these three key results are items that can help lead to that objective. So I've made 10 pizzas. They're also measurable. If I only made 9 pizzas, I didn't quite meet my key result. And then 7 out of 10 friends love my pizza. So there's kind of a polling and kind of seeing how you're doing from external people. And then I document 5 original pizza topping combinations. But also note that these are not um, task list items. They're kind of bigger. So there are several things that go into each of these key results. And each of these key results then kind of inform getting to that objective of making pizza. So, why OKRs and why did Fracture Atlas come upon these? So, first, a little bit of history of how they came to be. So, Fractured Atlas used to have annual strategic priorities memos and thematic goals for set periods of time. One of the primary complaints about those was that they were higher level and no one past the leadership team, and sometimes even people on the leadership team could not see how their work day in, day out impacted the success or failure of achieving those goals. So, OKRs are a way for the leader of an organization to set and articulate the primary goals for a period of time, and then for every person in the organization to directly link theirs to the work of those broader goals. So they're a way for every employee to think about how their work impacts the organization and a way to stay accountable to those goals. So here are two things that are pretty important in that they cascade. So each employee's OKRs connect to and support higher level goals, kind of what I was talking about. So anyone in the organization can see how the work that they're doing on a day-to-day basis connects to the success of the organization. They're also transparent. So every employee can view every other employee's OKRs, which is helpful when coordinating with each other, but also with managers. So on an individual level, if I know that there's someone else in the organization that has OKRs that aligns with something that I'm doing, I'm more likely to get that coworker's help or buy-in on something that helps my OKRs. They also provide a framework for conversations between managers and those to report to them about what work is important. So, kind of just making sure that the objectives are the right objectives and that the key results are making an impact towards those objectives. And then also what work is important and what skills people might need to develop in order to successfully achieve their OKRs. So here's kind of the time range. So we put together OKRs quarterly. And it's based on our fiscal year. So Q1 is September through November, Q2 December through February, Q3 is March through May, and Q4 is June through August. And we'll circulate a timeline. The people team will circulate a timeline of when certain things happen within that. But these are each of the OKRs are for this time frame and will be measured in that time range. So this is kind of each quarter, this is the timeline of how it works. So first, the CEO comes up with kind of more higher level organizational OKRs. And then the I team creates objectives and key results. And the objectives occasionally are children of the CEO's objectives. So if you look in any of the documents, you'll see under some objectives, it'll say child of, and it'll say a different objective. Not every individual's objectives are children of other people's objectives, but a lot of them are. So they kind of cascade up. So then the I team creates theirs, and then anyone that directly reports to an I team member. And then after those have been completed, any further reports from those people. So the people team took over managing the timeline of the OKRs in spring of 2017 when OKRs moved out of test mode. So we'd kind of been in semi-pilot mode for a little over a year, and just decided that after that period of time, it made sense for them to live with the people team. So Also, just to repeat so each quarter a timeline will be circulated with dates for each of these people and deadlines that should be met. So feel free to check back at the internal knowledge base article if you're wondering about certain timeline. And depending on when you come on board, you might be brought into a round of OKRs, or you might wait a month or a month and a half or so for the next round. But feel free to talk to your manager to see if this is something that you need to do now, or if you want to kind of hold off until the next round. But even if you do wait, it's a good idea to take a look at other people's just to see what is happening within the organization. So now, how does someone construct a really great OKR? So there are two criteria that all key results are judged by. And these are the two of them. Is it obvious how the key result supports the objective? And is it obvious how the key result will be evaluated? So usually in a key result, you want it to, you don't want a key result that is completely not related to the objective. So like, for example, in the pizza example that I used earlier, if I made a key result that I'll eat 7 ice cream sundaes, that doesn't make any sense in how it relates to becoming a master of making pizzas. And then it also should be obvious how the key result will be evaluated. So usually in a key result, it'll say some sort of measurement or some form of what success looks like for that key result. So it'll usually say that within the key result for how that will be evaluated, so that at the end of the quarter, it's easier to figure out if that key result was met or not. So here's a slightly more fleshed out example of an OKR with the objective of build a kick-ass product. And then here are some key results that are very specific. So let's look at the second one. User feedback on new features is at least 75% positive. So there we have a number, and you can, depending on what the outcome is at the end of the quarter, you know if you've met it or you know how close you are to meeting it. And then based on a sample of customer service ticket threads. So that's important also because that shows where that information is coming from. So when thinking about creating key results, just think about how they correspond to the objective and if they make sense for that objective, and then where that information is coming from. So, here are some tips. Don't cram in too many of them. A good rule of thumb is to aim for no more than 4 objectives and 10 to 12 key results in total across all of them. So, you might have, let's say, 3 objectives with 4 key results, or 3 or 4 key results for each of those. So, don't try to cram in too many of them, because any more than that, and you'll risk focusing attention away from the results that are most important. So aim for an ambitious but feasible set of goals. The rule of thumb is to say that if you're meeting around 70% of your key results in a given quarter, you're calibrating this about right. Any higher and you're not really being ambitious enough. So if you say meet 100% of them, you probably could have had slightly more ambitious key results. And any lower, and you're either adding too many of them, you aren't being realistic about what can be accomplished, or you aren't capable of doing the work, or maybe halfway through you realize that that work isn't the important stuff that you need to be doing. So maybe the next round you can kind of recalibrate and find out what actually is, what are the important things to include in your key results. So don't confuse key results with tasks. I mentioned this a little bit before, but they shouldn't be a to-do list. They should instead reflect what the result will be of you completing your work successfully. So avoid starting your key results with a verb like do blank, as that will reinforce the association with tasks. Another way to think about that is that there are multiple steps to get to said key result. So it's helpful to phrase it as outcome states. So blank has happened instead of do blank. And then a helpful thing is to get agreement with your supervisors on the objective first and then worry about the KRs. That way you won't have to retrace your steps any more than needed. Oftentimes, if you're have worked for a little while and if you made a few rounds of objective and key results, the objectives will be kind of similar, or you'll have a good sense on your team of what those objectives are. And some people do repeat objectives now and again. So sometimes it is then at those points helpful to think about what types of big projects, what types of things you want to meet, and then figure out how those relate to your objectives. And then look for opportunities to connect OKRs with those of others. In some cases, it's even appropriate to share entire OKRs across multiple staff members. So you might have the same objective as some of your coworkers, or you might even have similar key results as some other people, and that is totally fine. So, how do you make yours? So, I'll link to the internal knowledge base article, and that will have the current timeline for OKRs, and then also talk to your manager to find out when you'll need to make yours, which quarter you'll start. And then you can also find links in that internal knowledge base article to the current quarter OKRs and an archive of past ones. So feel free to poke around in there to get a sense for past and current OKRs for the organization and especially your team. And it's kind of helpful to see how the organization has changed and how people have shifted. So it's kind of a good idea to look back at those and see what has been important for the organization. I think it's a really good snapshot to get a sense for Fractured Atlas. And then, as always, feel free to reach out to your manager or anyone on the people team with questions. And that is all. Good luck in creating your OKRs.